and folks have a living crisis that's squeezing everyone. We're facing a healthcare collapse, a crisis like we've never seen before. We're seeing it. We need nothing more than stable, thoughtful, smart leadership. Where's our? We have a government that is. Make no mistake, Danielle Smith's code for state and the acts of her separatist government. We know dangerous economically. Separatism scares investment, it costs us jobs, it makes life more expensive, certain. And as we've seen just in the last few days, separatism is also national security. But perhaps most important today, separatism is a distraction from the real problems we're facing every day. So let me be clear. Separatism doesn't lower the cost. Separatism doesn't hire more teachers or address classroom complexity. Jobs. But at the end of the day, the most hundreds, if not thousands of Albertans over the last several months. And that always have been, always will be. So what do we want to do about that now? Alberta's New Democrats are focused, we're ready, we're laser focused on the challenge in a world of uncertainty. And we need a government that strengthens our place in Canada and protects our economic future. Not one that gambles. Alberta's New Democrats unequivocally denounce separatism in Canada. We're proud Canadians, and we know Albertans are proud Canadians too, to get rid of our calling upon the Alberta legislature to say that we stand for Canada. So today, we're going to make it real easy for them. We're calling on the Premier, the UCP government, and every MLA to be crystal clear and just tell Albertans, are you on Team Canada or are you a separatist? It's as simple as that. And no, we don't need to hear your word salad, a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada, which means nothing. Citizens are smarter than that. They want to simply know one thing. Are you a separatist or aren't you? So we're going to make it real easy for MLAs. Today, I'll be sending a letter to every MLA, asking them for their response, and asking them to sign a simple statement. The statement simply says this, and I will sign it myself right now. I affirm that I am a proud Albertan and a proud Canadian. I am opposed to separatism, and I will make my position known and clear to my constituents. Pretty easy. And if you were elected to the legislature, if you swore your oath, there should be no problem signing that. So hopefully all MLAs, UCP and New Democrat MLAs, should be able to sign that, oh, I don't know, by the end of the day today. And I hope that all Albertans are willing to ask the same of their MLAs. Look, Albertans deserve a better government than this. We deserve a government that doesn't fight against our own interests. We deserve a government that is prioritizing the everyday challenges that people need help with here at home. The cost of living, healthcare, jobs. And that starts by announcing that you're clearly on Team Canada. If Danielle Smith and the UCP government can't, or if they won't, then we will. And Alberta's New Democrats are ready to be that better government that Albertans deserve. So with that, I'm happy to take some questions, and I should have said, thanks guys. I'm surrounded here by a number of my Calgary caucus members, all of whom are about to sign this thing, except I don't know where the other copies went. And we will do similar things with our entire party. You know what, here's the interesting thing. I should just point this out as we go to questions. I didn't ask any of you to sign that. I didn't take a poll of my caucus and made sure that everyone was okay signing it.
Didn't need to.
Because I didn't need to. Because it's self-evident. We signed an oath to protect this nation and this province, and we will do that every single day. We'll go to questions.
All right, we'll get started with questions in the room. Perfect, please state your name and outlet. We'll do one question and one follow-up.
Hi.
How do you respond to the rhetoric that UCP is using the separatist movement to carve out a better deal?
You know, that is what the Premier wants us to believe. The interesting question is, what's that deal? What has she managed to carve out? We have an MOU that if you talk to people in the oil and gas industry, has had absolutely zero impact. Those laws are still there. The bureaucracy is still there preventing things from getting built. We still have no pipeline, we still have no route, we still have no proponent, we just have a pipe dream. So Danielle Smith wants us to believe this. She wants us to believe that she fought for a better deal with Canada and she's going to be capped in Canada and she stands for Canada because the country now works. But her party and her caucus may or may not be with her. And this is the real problem. Albertans are not seeing results from this kind of endless fighting. And what we need is real deals that make a real difference to Alberta, like when Rachel Notley got the Trans Mountain expansion completed. And that's not what we're seeing here at all. And the Premier has been trying to play both sides. She's trying to pander to separatists while telling non-separatists, the vast majority of Albertans, that she stands with them. And when you try to play both sides, sometimes you stand with neither. That's why we're trying to make them sign this simple thing. If she's willing to say that, then we can take everything else she does at face value. If she's not willing to say she stands with Canada, or she uses her word salad of sovereign Alberta, then we know that either she can't or she won't simply say, I'm a proud Canadian. And that's a challenge.
And good thing on your point, what is your response to Danielle Smith's repeated argument that in a democracy people should have the right to be able to vote on issues of separation?
Sure, so how come the separatists have to only pay $500 when anyone else who wants a referendum has to pay $25,000? Why did the government change the law and bring it to the whole legislature at the cost of hundreds of thousands of dollars twice just to make it easier for a separatist referendum? It may be a question one wants to ask Danielle Smith, because when she was asked on her radio show this summer, why are you doing this? Why are you pandering to the separatists? She didn't say, so I can make a better deal with Canada. She said, because if I don't, I'll lose the next election. And you know what? Canada is much too important to risk on Danielle Smith's political future.
All right, next question. Oh. All good here? In the room? Yeah. If you can come to the mic.
Yeah, I'll ask one.
Oh, sorry, I didn't get it. Question right over here. Okay, we're gonna move to the line, so then we'll come back into the room, sorry.
I have a question regarding this topic, but I also have a question regarding another topic.
You know, you've earned the right to ask me too. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. In this respect, Ms. Smith has made it clear that she would like to see things like the CPP and the provincial police force and other consolidated in Alberta. Do you think that she actually believes that a separatist referendum will fail? That she's setting an anchor price at separation and everyone will go, we dodged that, well, I guess the other stuff you want is okay.
This is an old game. This is a game that, you know, she used to be the biggest critic of the Quebec government when she was a journalist. And now she wants to do what they do. It is an old game and it never works. If you go out to the separatist rallies and you say, hey, if you get an Alberta pension plan and a local police force, you're going to stop this nonsense? They're not going to stop. And so what she's done is she's emboldened this group of people with all these promises of things that other Albertans don't want. Massive majorities of Albertans say, keep the RCMP here. Massive majorities of Albertans say, do not take away my Canada pension plan that I've worked hard for. So what she's doing is she is offering up things that Albertans don't want her to offer that have extraordinarily high price. Quite frankly, she's a terrible negotiator. And as a result, we're going to end up, if she is successful, with a group of Albertans who are going to be core separatists and angry at whatever she brings home, and she's going to bring home deals that are bad for all Albertans, if she brings home any deals at all. Okay, go ahead. You had three.
Okay, on another topic. Last week in an order in council that was framed as being about taking bitumen in kind for royalties, they also authorized $900 billion in borrowing with a list of
900 million.
things that can be used for. What's your take on that?
So the government is attempting to interfere in the market for heavy oil. Now, if they did it thoughtfully, if they did it well, if they really knew what they were doing and they were able to act as a market leader, they might be able to impact a little bit on the margin, the markets for this oil. They might be able to make a little bit of money for the Treasury. The problem we have is this government has never shown any evidence of being competent or sophisticated or thoughtful when it starts messing around in the private sector, which they are now doing. And the Premier's Chief of Staff, Mr. Anderson, gave away the whole game on the weekend on Twitter. She really needs to get him off of social media. But it's helpful for us, so keep doing it. But he gave away the whole game when he said, oh, this is so we can back a pipeline, which makes no sense. What is $900 million going to do to backstop a $34 billion pipeline for which there is no private proponent? So basically, this is a fever dream, and I just hope it doesn't cost Albertans a ton of money. The last time they tried to interfere with Albertans' money in pipeline politics, they cost us $1.4 billion. That $1.4 billion would have paid for every single demand that the teachers were making to address classroom sizes and complexity, and instead it flew out the window. This is $900 million bucks. It is a lot of money, and I have no faith whatsoever that this government knows what it's doing with it.
Okay, our next question comes from Zoom, from Catherine Grukowski. Catherine, your line should be open.
Catherine, oh, there you are. Hi, Catherine.
Hi, I'm sorry, you alluded to this in your remarks, but I'm wondering how concerned are you about foreign interference in the separatist petition process?
Yeah. Isn't it interesting that the same people who've been screaming about foreign interference in the federal scene have suddenly gotten very quiet about extremely obvious foreign interference from the United States in the separatist referendum? This is a very, very big problem. Where are they getting their money? Where are they getting their organization from? And to be clear, there's no secret here, friends. The separatists have been bragging about the deals they're making with the United States with no authority to do so whatsoever, no legitimacy, no democratic right to do it. They've been bragging about it. And now we have members of the US administration starting to muse again about how Alberta could join the United States. So it really is time for the provincial government to stop playing around. I should have added a sentence to this pledge. And we will never join the United States. Maybe I will add that sentence. But it's very, very clear that there's interference all over the place. This is interference that's been welcomed by a premier whose greatest dream was to see Mar-a-Lago. She saw it, and she brought us nothing back, and the president of the United States has no idea who she is, which is probably her heartbreak. But let's remember, when Danielle Smith was running for premier, she was asked, who are your political role models? She didn't say John A. MacDonald. She didn't say John Diefenbaker. She said Kristi Noem. She said Ron DeSantis. So this is playing right into her hands. We have audio of someone claiming that she told him that she's been musing on whether she'd want to be the president or the prime minister of an independent Alberta. This is who we have as a premier. And this is what she does. And you know, I sure hope that she doesn't love Kristi Noem anymore after what we've been seeing with the ICE raids, but she certainly hasn't repudiated anything she said. So this is happening. What, now? I said such smart things earlier. Catherine, do you have a follow-up?
I think we cut out, so we'll come back to the room here.
Why is it important that
Oh, hi.
each MLA makes a declaration like this? Why is that an important move, do you think, right now?
It's really clear that since the election, the UCP has become a separatist party. And when we sit there in the legislature and we look across the aisle, shall we say we see a lot of people questioning their life choices. And as a result, I think it's important for every MLA to make it clear where they stand. They managed to duck accountability in the legislature twice by avoiding a very simple debate on this issue. So now we're giving them a chance to just say it. I think constituents deserve to know. You know, a lot of people voted for the UCP in the last election because the UCP said, we'll never touch your pensions. We'll fix healthcare in 90 days. They never said, we will take Alberta out of Canada. So it's time for constituents to know. And if you're a separatist, tell your constituents that and run in the election letting them know that. I think that's just fair game.
And we're facing the reality there's a possibility we'll have two questions on this issue after this petition. It's a real possibility. So what happens then when we have two questions basically asking the same thing from a different angle?
So I'll answer that question very technically, and then I'll give you maybe a broader answer that's a bit easier. So at the end of the fall session, the UCP was supposed to strike a committee, a bipartisan committee with New Democrats and Conservatives on it, to determine how to deal with the Forever Canada petition. They delayed it to the last day of the session, which means the clock stops. So in the first few days of the new session, my whip here will tell me exactly how many days. I think in the first 3 days of the session at the end of February, they have to strike this committee. And this committee has to determine what to do with the Forever Canada petition. The legislation allows this committee to move things around a little bit. The challenge is they changed the legislation at the very end of the session. They hadn't even read the new legislation. The chief electoral officer said, wait, you can't do that. And in the middle of the night, the Minister of Justice proposed some amendments that he could not explain because he had not yet read them. And they didn't fix the problem. And one of the problems is they now allow for multiple petitions on the same topic. It used to be you could only have them, is it every 5 years? Something like that. There was a 5-year deadline that you could only have one petition on any given topic. Now they've allowed multiple. So that means that this committee, when it's struck, will presumably be the same committee if the separatists get their signatures to have to deal with that petition as well, but that's not till May. So at some point, this committee is going to have to decide, do we have 0 referenda? Do we have 1 referendum? Do we have 2 referenda? And this is all within the government's power. It's within Danielle Smith's power. But we've ended up in this situation because, as always, this government operates on ideology. They say, oh, things look good. Let's have recall legislation. It looks good. And then when people actually start using it, they try to recall the recall legislation. And so the real problem here is this government has no idea what it's doing. It has no idea what it means to govern. It just wants to score points. And now they've painted themselves into a corner. And even though we all know that even the thought of a referendum freezes investment for years, even though we know it's bad for the economy, the Premier has not yet figured out how to walk herself out of the corner she herself has painted herself into.
All right, we're going to go back to the lines. We had a brief cutout, so I'm going to come back to you, Catherine, if you have a follow-up.
Catherine, did you catch my last answer? I could repeat the entire thing. It was only 23 minutes long.
You cut out around the time when you said that the Premier went to Mar-a-Lago and came back with nothing to show for it. But I guess I'll just ask a follow-up question so that you're part of that last answer.
You missed all my talk about Kristi Noem and Ron DeSantis. But I'll put it into the next answer. Go ahead.
What safeguards would you like to see to combat or prevent foreign interference?
This is a real problem. We know that Elections Alberta is severely underfunded. We know that they've been asking for more funding to be able to deal with these petitions, and should the petition be successful, they have to likely, maybe, depending on what the Premier's mood is that morning, deal with a referendum. And so we've seen very significant concerns with foreign interference at the federal level. And we're starting to see real well, I shouldn't say suspicion of it, we've seen it. We've seen major US officials talk about this. So it really means that Elections Alberta, if you don't want foreign interference, needs to be massively beefed up in order to avoid it. Now the question is what I just asked. Does the Premier actually welcome this foreign interference? I have not heard her denounce it. I have not heard her say Albertans will decide. So we need to ensure that we have a government that sees foreign interference as a bad thing and that will act against it. And what you missed earlier, Catherine, as I just said, you know, when the Premier was asked when she was running for Premier who her political heroes were, she didn't say John A. Macdonald or John Diefenbaker. She said Kristi Noem and Ron DeSantis. And I sure as heck hope she's not a fan of Kristi Noem today with these ICE raids, but she's never corrected herself.
Right, our next question is from Jack Farrell, Canadian Press. Jack, your line should be open.
Awesome. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. So I wanted to ask, essentially, like, how far you guys are planning to push the pledge? Like, I'm wondering if I can expect like daily email updates with any new UCP MLAs that sign, or is this essentially? I want to know what the plan is moving forward about how people can know who has signed it and who hasn't.
You've just given me an excellent idea. So, you know, we will put this out today. We'll see what happens. Because as I say, we didn't put any traps in here. We didn't make it difficult or complicated. It just says, as I said earlier, I'm a proud Albertan and a proud Canadian and I'm opposed to separatism. That's all it says. So if the UCP doesn't try to overly game this, I wasn't kidding when I said We should have all the signatures by the end of the day. Some people might be on vacation still, but you know, by the end of the week. Now, what is going to happen is that they will be paranoid, as they often are, and they will probably put an edict out from centrally on whether you can sign it or not sign it. And I think that will be very telling. If they are willing to sign it and willing to say, that's how I ran, that's the oath I swore when I started in this legislature, then we're good. And we don't have to push this much further, but they will have a lot to answer for when it comes to their constituents. If they choose not to sign it, then they will have even more to answer for. So to answer your question, Jack, stay tuned. The ball's in their court now.
All right, do you have a follow-up, Jack?
And then I've got yeah, sorry if it's an off-topic one.
It's okay.
And I don't know who all was there, so I'll just give the question to Nancy. But the new triage liaison position is supposed to start on Sunday. Do you have any kind of hopes that that's going to make a big difference in the hospital, as we've seen, kind of countless reports about them being overwhelmed?
Look, the hospital system is in crisis. For years, we've been talking about a hospital system at the brink of collapse. And what we know now is in far too many communities in Alberta, it has collapsed. And I want to be clear about this. This is not just a bad flu season. This is not what happens in January in emergency rooms, right? If you ask anyone working in an emergency room, they will tell you, I have never seen anything like this before. And it is the direct result of really bad government policy. So I often say when a government screws up this badly, there really are only two reasons that that could happen. One is they have no idea what they're doing, and the second is they're breaking the system on purpose for some nefarious means. Those are the only two answers to why the system is so broken. There's sometimes a third answer, which is circumstances out of our control, but that doesn't apply here. So either they're incompetent or they're malicious. And the thing that we have with this government is a little bit of both. And as always, they didn't see the results of their incompetence and malice in what is actually happening to real people. People dying in the waiting room. Real people, real families that could have been saved. So I'm happy, I guess, that they are starting to listen to the doctors now. They still haven't declared a state of emergency. They still haven't instituted a centralized command. The Ministry of Acute Care, one of the 5 ministers involved, not 4 anymore, now there's a 5th one, they threw in infrastructure. The Ministry of Acute Care continues to deny that the system is in crisis or has collapsed. So yes, add triage physicians, that's awesome. What that means is doctors will see you in the waiting room if there's no bed for you. But if you ask any emergency room doc right now, they'll tell you they do that every day. And so the real thing that this adds is it adds another doctor to a shift. That's good. But we never should have gotten to a place where the workforce in the emergency rooms is not adequate to being able to do it. No, and I should be clear. I'm not saying the workers are not adequate. They are working their buns off, saving people every single day, and I'm deeply grateful to them, but there aren't enough of them, and there aren't enough beds. This government's been in office for 6 years. They haven't built a single critical care bed. Not one has opened in 6 years. They haven't increased the hours of urgent care. They haven't put an all-points bulletin, all hands on deck blast to figure out how we can increase the staffing in emergency rooms at peak times. They are now blaming challenges between assisted living Alberta, primary care Alberta, and acute care Alberta, problems that were never there before when it was all AHS, is part of the issue. And they refuse to call a state of emergency, they refuse to have a central command, and they refuse to call the legislature back so they can be held to account. They're hoping this goes away. It's not going away.
All right, our next question is from Rahim Mohammed. Rahim, your line should be open.
Hello, thank you for taking our questions. So piggybacking a bit on Catherine's question, there's a lot of anxiety here in Ottawa about the tools, or lack thereof, to counter foreign interference in the event of a referendum.
Yeah.
Alberta, obviously, we could be doing breakdance in Quebec in a few years' time. So we passed about a year and a half ago foreign interference legislation. We just put out in January draft regs. I think we're in a 30-day consultation period. A commissioner has not yet been named. Is this an area where you would encourage federal officials to act with more urgency and hurry up?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Raheem. You know, I haven't been following the bouncing ball on that very closely myself, so I haven't seen those draft regs yet, which I have little to do with my current job, but I'm very interested in. But yeah, absolutely. You know, one of the real challenges we have is that the political environment in which we live is a political environment that encourages people not to trust anyone. So, you know, Mr. Poilievre doesn't want you to trust the mainstream media. He doesn't want you to trust, Danielle Smith doesn't want you to trust, quote, unelected judges, unquote, except when they rule in her favor, when she really loves them. But this whole atmosphere of mistrust, eroding people's trust in institutions, is a really big deal. Because after a while, if people stop trusting one another, and they only put all their faith in a politician, let's say, then they will stop trusting that politician. So it's really, really important that we both do and seem to be doing the work to buttress the institutions of democracy. People have to be able to trust public health care. They have to be able to trust public education. And probably above all, they have to be able to trust that elections are fair. Because you know where this script goes. If the separatists get enough signatures, if the government can't figure out how to avoid a petition, if we go to a petition, if that petition fails, as all the polls tell us it will fail, well, then you've got a bunch of people who are in such an echo chamber and have been told that everyone agrees with them, seeing an election result go against them. What happened in 2020 when that happened in the United States? What's been happening recently is people erode trust in these institutions. So we need to do everything we can to help people understand that the hardworking public servants who make our institutions work have their best interests at heart and that elections are fair and free.
Do you have a follow-up, Raheem?
Sure. So the Pro Independence Group, I think they're very well on the way to collecting signatures. There have been big turnouts, obviously, in smaller towns, but there was recently a sizable gathering in Edmonton in the Rundle Park area. Statistically speaking, some of these people voted NDP in 2023. Some of these people might have even voted for you in your by-election over the summer. What's your message to NDP voters who are so frustrated with how Canada's been treating the Confederation that they're thinking about signing the signature, that they've signed the signature?
I don't think the data holds up that assertion, Raheem. We have seen. Well, let's put it this way. We have actually had polling on this. Like, we didn't do it. There was public polling on this earlier this spring that showed about 60% of the UCP supporters could consider supporting separatism. And it showed, what was the number? Does anyone remember? 99.6% of NDP supporters would never, ever support separatism. I've seen no evidence that that has changed. But that said, reaching out to all Albertans, I would simply say that don't fall for it, man. Don't fall for it. You know, you have people saying to you, oh, we need to be more independent while they're making deals with the United States. So ironically, a quote-unquote independent Alberta would be even more subservient and less independent than it is now. And I think that most Albertans really are saying, I don't fall for this. So yeah, there have been some people showing up at these things. 177,000 is a big number. That's the number of signatures they need to get. But we also know is that not a single poll has shown the support for separatism being above 30% in Alberta. Now that said, you can never underestimate what could happen in a referendum. I don't think a single poll showed support for Scottish independence being much higher than 35%. A recent poll shows that 31% of people in Texas would like to leave the United States. But that said, this is very serious stuff. Referenda are unpredictable. There can be room for unbelievable misinformation. What we saw the day after the Brexit referendum was a number of voters who said, whoa, had I known it was going to win, I wouldn't have voted for it. I was just trying to send a signal. And we saw a number of voters that said, whoa, had I known it was going to win, I would have voted. So my message to Albertans is take this seriously. If you believe in the Canada Pension Plan, if you believe in the RCMP doing a good job here, if you believe that with all its bruises and faults, this is still the greatest country on earth, if you believe in honoring the memories of people, no one's more than Albertans who fought and died for this country, then we got to take this seriously. and we've got to stand up seriously on the side of Canada and on Team Canada. We cannot repeat the mistakes of 1995 in Canada. We cannot repeat the mistakes of Brexit. And so I'm reaching out to all Albertans saying, let's stand up for what we really believe in.
We're going to do one last pass for questions. All right, and with that, oh, one more question. I'm going to ask that you, sorry, I'm going to ask that you come back to the folks online can hear. Yeah. We can go back here.
Thanks, Kevin.
Hey, a real quick question. The last time I had an opportunity to speak with Ms. Smith, which was just before Christmas, early December, I asked her directly, is your party now a separatist party? Her answer was unequivocal. She said no. Was she lying?
She may not have been paying attention to the election results at her convention, or the fact that her own party presidents, announced that he felt that the majority of people in his party are now separatists.
Any more questions in the room? All right, with that, that concludes our press conference. Thanks, folks.
Thank you, everyone.